How are you guys doing today, guys and gals?
Good.
Good, good. Um, I'm coming to you from North Dakota in the United States. We're going to show you where that's at right now. I'm going to share my screen real quick and check this out. Well, actually, not this one yet, but let me go ahead and get out of that. If it'll let me here. There we go. Okay, so I am right here in Fargo, North Dakota right now. Okay? But I'm about to go to Killarney Island, Ireland right now on Google Earth. So here we are. I went from there to you in like a couple of seconds. This is another great technology, of course. You're not using it for basketball, but this is just kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of how far it is. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a second. Welcome, of course, you guys. I'm sure everyone's having a good time in camp with all the great coaches. You have some incredible coaches, some of the best coaches in Ireland, if not the best, and of course, Ricardo from Portugal. And so the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to be talking about the art and science of scouting. Now, some of you all are just getting into the game or, just starting to learn the science of basketball. Many of you might be 12, 13, 14 years old. Some of you might be a little bit older than that. But we're going to be talking about this and lots of information. Of course, you have the scouting report in front of you. We'll talk about that in a little while. Hold on to that just for a second. And I'm just going to give a quick introduction and an agenda for our meeting real quick, okay? This is there's pictures of me. Of course, I coached at the college level for 17 years. And I was a head college coach for 5. And as you can tell, I'm a pretty passionate coach and coach all the way from Division I all the way down to high school and middle school. One of the things that I was fortunate to do was I was able to coach on 2 conference championship teams as an assistant coach at the college level at Williams College and at Grove City College. Williams is in Massachusetts, not far from Boston, and Grove City is just north of Pittsburgh. I also spent nearly a year in Ireland in Galway, and I worked at St. Mary's College, Galway, as a consultant. My wife, Candy, and I did. And my wife, Candy, is actually a former first-team National Christian College All-American here in the United States and as a post player and has coached as well. But we both spent some time in Galway at St. Mary's College. Some of the national team players, I know Claire, being from that area near, Ormore and whatever, obviously knows where St. Mary's College is. I was fortunate to lead our team as the head coach to a national runner-up finish in the Subway All-Ireland U15 Schools Cup in 2016. We lost to St. Malachy's, a very skilled and very well-coached team there on the island. I was also a head coach at the high school level at Regent School of Austin in Austin, Texas. Was fortunate to win a district championship and also get our team actually went all the way to one game from the state semifinals. And of course, Texas, if you can imagine, the size of Texas is the size of 8 Irelands. So it's a pretty big state. I was also an assistant for 2 years at University of Denver for a guy named Eric Johnson, who just stepped down as the head coach at Boston College in the ACC on the women's side. I currently am an actual university faculty member in sport and performance psychology and also in sport management, and founded my company, Basketball Mentoring, which the superhero guy is supposed to be me in the bottom right corner. My hair's a little shorter these days, but my wife designed all of this. And I basically consult with teams all over the United States at the college and high school level, and of course with several teams in Ireland. And I'm also going to be branching out to the Republic of Moldova here in Eastern Europe to do some work with Admirals Basketball Academy, which was founded by David Robinson, the Spurs Hall of Famer, this coming spring. And I'm also a member of Basketball Ireland's Elite Performance Committee, the EPC. Been doing that for 2 years, coming up on 3. Power of technology, check this out. I just showed you kind of where I am. I am 5,946 kilometers from where you are, okay? And to give you an indication of where I'm at, It's in the extreme northern part of the United States. We're about 4 hours north of Minneapolis, St. Paul. So for any folks that follow the NBA, where the Timberwolves play. But we're also 10 hours by car from Chicago to the northwest. So a little over 1,000 kilometers, about 610 miles. So quite a distance from you, but it's pretty neat to have this kind of technology to talk to you guys today and gals. So our agenda, just to go real fast, just gave the introduction, but we're going to give you an explanation of what scouting is. And it doesn't matter what age you are. If you're 13, 12, 13, you're just getting into basketball, you can learn how to watch a game and know what to look for. We're going to be talking about that today. We're also going to be talking about what self-scouting is, exactly what it is, so it can help you not only as a player, but also as a teammate. And then we're going to take a look at scouting reports. Of course, you have one right in front of you for Portugal, and we'll talk through that very briefly. We're also going to show some film footage from a team here, actually, that came up with the Cedarville University, a Division II team in Ohio in northern United States. We're going to take a really quick look at analytics, really quick, to kind of look at our national teams in Ireland and kind of the trends that we're seeing. Of course, they're actually trending very well. They're starting to go upward in terms of percentages, and I'm actually in the middle of a 5-year report to do that. Then we'll have a conclusion time where we'll have you ask questions, okay? You guys ready to get rolling? Let's get rolling. Okay, so with scouting, why is it so important? I think one of the biggest reasons why it's important, and I may not read all these bullet points, but one of the reasons why it's important is it's of great value to you as a player and to any coach, because you want to know what to expect from the team that you're going to be playing. You also want to know how your team is playing. And it takes a lot of time and effort and a lot of preparation to do that from us coaches. But also, we would hope as coaches that you would put effort in as well. Now, as far as being able to gain a competitive advantage, and listen, it's one thing to be able to be a good team, be able to defend, be able to shoot and score and execute. But one of the greatest things to do in execution is being prepared and having a focus for any team that you're going to be playing against. And so we're going to be providing a really quick overview. And some of this is going to be kind of high level, but I'm going to try to bring it down a little bit so you all can understand. And it, basically scouting, it can come from live games where you go to a game and watch a player play or a team play, or video footage, or from reading scouting reports, just taking a look at your own team and yourselves as players. So 3 things that I think you should consider when you're a player or a coach scouting. That when you're scouting an opponent, it's all about you and your team. You're not going to get everything. Listen, if you go and watch, let's just say Mercy Mount Hawk down in Tralee, and you're a local, lad or someone that lives in Killarney, and you're going to go play them, for instance, you're not going to get every play. You're not going to get every tendency, but you really want to get as much as you can. Even I can watch hours and hours of film, and I might not see everything because they may bring something out of their bag of tricks. One of the things that you want to do is emphasize what your team can do within the philosophy of play that your coach sets up for you. And because bottom line, this is what's going to give you the advantage. The biggest thing you can do in any scenario, guys and gals, is this: be yourself as a player, and be yourself. You need to be yourself as a team, really. I mean, to be able to know your identity. So it's all about you and your team and your scouting, okay? Second thing, main themes that you see matter the most. You want to look for the tendencies of your opponent or players on that team and prepare thoroughly for those. If you know the main themes of what the style of play is and how to guard your specific man, then you're going to be in much better shape. So, for instance, if I'm playing a 2-guard on my team, and I know I'm going to be guarding, their 2-guard, if the coaches state that in the report after their review, then I want to know exactly how to do that. Do I need to jump back and take angles and be explosive? Do I need to understand that person's a knock 'em dead shooter from 3, and that's all they do? I need to know all those things. We're going to be talking a little bit about that here shortly. And it also helps knowing how your team can become better. And that's going to be the self-scouting piece later. As far as a plan and scouting, you know what? Any coach, whether it's Coach Tommy there, who led our under 18 women to great success and glory with Claire Melia there a couple years ago, or anyone else, it's one thing to have a scouting report, but it's another thing to actually execute what's in it. Okay, and the plan that you guys come up with as a team or as a coaching staff, it really takes execution. And if you don't do those things, typically you're not going to be as successful or not have the same potential for success. So it's all about following the game plan and demanding execution of all the people associated with the team. That includes your coaches, any managers, anyone, because everyone's part of the team. Okay, so those three things. First, scouting your opponent is all about you and your team. Second, main themes matter the most. And third, the plan and the scouting work is all about execution, okay? So three things to consider when you're watching a game as an individual, or if you're a coach there or anyone else, or maybe some of you young guys and gals want to go into coaching. It's all about being able to be detail-oriented, okay? How do I handle scouting? One of my biggest things, and I know not everyone has video footage over there, but I utilize video footage, or I'll watch a game live. And also, if I see that there's statistics there that are provided, I'll use those as well. If not, if I go to a game and I can't get stats, which over here is typically not that big of an issue, especially at the college level. Sometimes at the high school level, it's not easy to find. But if I can't find those things, I will take out a shot chart and I will chart all the shots for each team. Or I'll ask a friend that's with me to help me out to get all of the places where shots are coming from, okay? I typically like to look at 3 games minimum, if possible. When I was a head college coach and also when I was an assistant coach, I would watch anywhere between 7 to 10 games on each team a lot of times because I wanted to get as much as I could. And if it came to a point where, I got everything I needed, then I would stop. But it's really important to have whatever you can to be able to understand that. And that includes with your own team, okay? These are some notes that I wanted to offer you. And again, by the way, Coach Weldon is going to have this PowerPoint presentation and all the information I talked about today. He'll have that. So he can email that to you or whatever. You just let him know if you would like these information pieces, okay? These are some notes that I look at when I'm looking at team tendencies on both sides of the court, offensively and defensively. I look at zone, what kind of defense they're playing. Are they playing zone or man defense? Is it full court and or half court? Do they trap, and what kind of traps do they use? Do they trap out of a zone press? Do they trap out of a half court zone? Do they trap from wing down to post on passes inside? Do they trap from the backside? I need to know those things. I want to see how aggressive their defense is. If it's aggressive, I'll put that in my notes. If it's not aggressive, I'll also do the same. I want to know if they're unbalanced defensively. Listen, one of the great things about this game, ladies and gentlemen, is that basketball is all about balance. It's all about being on your feet, having your feet underneath you, and not going out of balance, slowing down when you need to slow down, exploding when you need to explode. And defensively, I want to know if they're going to close out and if they get in stances. Stances are so incredibly important. I teach it as the very first thing with every team I work with, including college teams, because you'd be amazed at some of the teams over here. The players don't even know how to get in a stance, even in the United States. So I see those things, that those are weaknesses of the other team. I'm going to attack them with drives and try to get help to come up and stop it. Speaking of help, are they a good help team? Do they use their hands well? God gave most of us 2 of these, some of us 1, but whatever God gave you, use it. I think that's one of the things that players don't do enough. Is a team a physical team? How are they going to defend the post? Do they defend behind the post, 3/4 front the post, or in front of the post? How do they defend ball screens? And do they switch on any of those ball screens? And how do they defend other screens that may be happening? Any kind of cut. It's like a pin down or cross screens and things in the lane, and do they switch on those? So that's something I'm going to look at. What's their tempo offensively? That's one thing about Irish basketball. It's very much up and down the court, and we're going to look at analytics here in a little bit to kind of talk about that. But I want to know if they're going to push it up the floor or if they want to walk it up the floor. Kieran Donaghy the other night when he was interviewed, he talked about the difference between Coach Price this year with Tralee Warriors and last year with Coach Burnson. And last year he said that they walked it up, and this year they're getting up and down the floor more. And so I need to be able to know that when I'm watching a team so I can prepare our team for what's coming up. Do they handle the ball well? Do they like to pass and distribute? By the way, Irish teams do a great job at the international level on that, and we'll show a stat to you in a second that's pretty amazing on that. And do they really play team basketball? Are they a good rebounding team? I mean, all these, there's a lot of information here, but I'm just going to go real quickly through it. Are they a good rebounding team? Do they give up a lot of offensive rebounds? So do they not box out? Do they get a lot of second chance shots off of offensive rebounds? So do they crash the offensive glass to get rebounds? What kind of sets do they run? What kind of inbounds plays do they run? Where do all their shots come from? Are they from three, from the short corner, from elbows, in the paint? Where do they come from? And any kind of special situation sets at the end of a possession, like a 24-second shot clock, or at the end of a half or a quarter. Also, the last three things are very critical when I'm looking at something. Where can we be successful on both sides of the floor? What are their strengths, weaknesses, and what are our opportunities and threats? And I'm going to talk a little bit about that here in a second with the scouting report. As far as personnel is concerned, I use a lot of box scores from statistics to help with my personnel. And in the international program, which some of your coaches have played in or coached in with Ricardo and Coach Weldon, and, of course, Coach Amani, one of the things is, you're going to get those kind of things at the FIBA webpage that can be very helpful. But I'm going to be looking at height and weight of the player, where their shots are coming from, if they attack and penetrate and get to the rim and to the paint, which are places that you don't really want players to get to if you're defending them, okay? You want to stop them at the point of attack. What is their dominant hand? Listen, everyone has a dominant hand. Mine's right. But, obviously you're probably working on both right now in camp. But everyone's going to have a dominant hand. We want to know how good they are with both hands, how well they can handle the ball. If they're a distributor of the ball to their teammates, so not a selfish player, but they want to get their teammates shots. One big thing is if they have the ability to finish in the lane or hit the basket with both hands in traffic. So people all around them, they know how to do that. And I heard you guys were doing some work on that just before this video. It's so incredibly important. We don't have enough of that. And high percentage shots such as layups need to be made, not missed. That's a coach's nightmare, and it's something that is a lot of times mental. What are the percentage of shots from the two-point area and from three-point range? And what are they from the free throw line? How well do they shoot it at the line? And do they get there often? And that's something that's typically going to be dealing basically with how we play defense. If we're not stopping the ball where it is at the point of attack, there may be a situation where that's why they're getting to the line so much, or their quickness. This is something, and I put a YouTube video in. We won't watch it, but this is a video from Coach McDermott at Creighton University in Iowa. And some coaches will use this. I'll use it sometimes in my scouting reports. Depends on what level I'm coaching. But how are we going to close out on each player? Is it going to be, is the player a Kobe Bryant type player who can shoot and drive it, and we want to play him straight up on the closeout? Or is it going to be Rajon Rondo, who is really a driver exclusively, not a very good shooter, and we're going to chop and defend half the distance? Or is it going to be a Kyle Korver, who shoots really exclusively from three, where we're going to be three-quarter chopping and chopping at three-quarter spot between our man and from where we are in our man, and getting our hands up really high. But this video for you coaches is very good. If you haven't seen it, of course, you'll have access to this presentation. Who are their starters? Who are their reserve players? typically with reserve players, you're going to see, like with Poland, for instance, this past summer with Coach O'Neill's under-18 team that went to Italy and at the A level, Poland had a lot of reserve players. And so, we want to know about each one. And if we have a chance to keep up with the time, if it's on the stat sheet, then we want to make sure that we're looking at how much time each player plays on average. So these are just a couple of things that we will look at. So lots of information I'm sending your way, but I think it's really important to understand that there is something to this where when you're watching a game, the next time you go to a game, and again, you'll have these presentations from Coach Weldon, think about how you can watch the game more in tune. Be able to look at how each player plays. Are they a driver? Are they exclusively a perimeter shooter? Can they defend? Can they stop their own shadow? These are things that really can make a difference in your development as a player. Whether you're a 13-year-old player, you're older age-wise as far as almost you're leaving cert or whatever. Because literally I've coached at the college level for many years, and when we get players here in the United States, many times we have to reteach. I, as a coach, would rather have a player that has a high basketball IQ. Somebody understands what is coming, okay? Now, I talked about self-scouting earlier, and with self-scouting, it's really what it is. It's the same approach that you would handle scouting your opponents, but you're actually scouting your own team. And it has a huge impact on the success of your team and whether or not your team can reach its potential. Really the trick to being able to do this well is to be able to be okay with critiquing yourself as a player, critiquing any person on the team, whether it's a coach, staff member, whatever, respectfully, of course. But we want to make sure that we're able to did the lights just go out? There you go. It's all about really accepting nothing less than the best effort from everyone on the team and being able to say, hey, we can do this better. And actually, I did self-scouting at the University of Denver for 2 years when I was at the Division I level, and that was my biggest thing, was doing self-scouting to help our coaching staff and our players become better. And I would literally tell my head coach, Coach Johnson, this is how I'd beat your team. This is how I'd beat our team if I were coaching against you. And having had 5 years of head coaching experience and a lot of years as an assistant, it was very valuable to him. At least that's what he's told me through the years. This is something that, self-scouting isn't used enough. It's something that is very valuable in team preparation. And I've done some self-scouting reports for some of the teams over in Ireland, some of the Super League teams, some of the National League teams. And I'm very honest. I tell them the truth about their team, as you can see underneath you might be able to see underneath my graphic underneath there with me as a superhero. I am very honest with how I communicate about what I see. And, the results of the process are invaluable to a team. I just wanted to share that with you all. So you have in front of you a report from the Portugal game, actually from this past summer when Coach Mike Lynch's under-16 team played Portugal in Bosnia-Herzegovina. And this report has 9 different things. So go ahead. You can take your eyes off the screen. Just listen. Look at your report real quick, okay? First and foremost, go ahead and do that real fast. Go ahead and grab it for you. If you've got groups, go ahead and do that. Now, you're probably going, wow, that's a lot of information here. Check this out. I did all of that information, and I watched 2 games every evening, and I would do it every day before a game throughout the entire European Championships. In fact, I did 2 a day for about 5 days with the under-16 men and the under-18 women. So I was very busy on this side of the Atlantic helping out. But first thing on the report, and I'll bring it up here on the screen real quick, is the report. So if you can see right here, the overview. And again, Ricardo, you probably might find this interesting. I know you coach on the women's side in Portugal, but this is how we looked at the men's team at least from the under-16 side. I was actually very impressed with them in terms of their athleticism and their finesse style. And I talked about, their two best players being Silva and Candias. I'm sure I probably messed that up there, but very skilled at each position, high-scoring team, can shoot the three, posts are good at finishing inside, can handle the ball well. That's one thing I really appreciate about Portugal is they only had 10 turnovers a game. And so I give an overview first, okay, which you're looking at right now. And you have that in your report too on your hands, in your hands. But you can also look here if you want. And then I go over defensive tendencies, the things that I see. Portugal played half-court man-to-man, played a little bit of denial, soft denial, so they wouldn't get into passing lanes and make it really hard to pass the ball around. But they did have active hands, got a lot of deflections. So anytime a pass would come, they would get their hands there. They switch a lot of screens, but they did get stuck on screens. So there were some looks outside on that in the game. And they did three-quarter front to post. So as you can see, there's a lot of information there. They played a little bit of 1-2-2 three-quarter zone press, back into a 2-3 zone. They weren't a very physical team, at least according to my report and what I saw. And honestly, in the game against Ireland, they weren't. But they do get out and go and run. So that was one of the things with the defensive side. Offensively, didn't run a whole lot of sets, mostly a motion-oriented team. And I'll show you the diagrams here in a second. Set out a lot of back screens, and they had this player named Lucas who shot a lot of threes each game. And again, like I said, they were a good handling team, and they really like to pump fake. So they catch the ball, pump fake, and drive a lot to be able to when they played against their opponents. The next thing I would do would come up with strengths for Portugal defensively and offensively. And then I would come up with weaknesses for Portugal. And in this game, I'm sure some of you all know the young man from Tralee, the Lithuanian kid Rapolis, who just had an incredible tournament for the under-16s. They let him get the ball inside, and they got paid. They basically paid him for letting that do that, or basically made him pay, I should say. So they weren't very physical on the ball defensively, got stuck on screens or below screens, didn't put a lot of pressure on, gave up some drives. And, that was one thing that the under-16 lads did very well from Ireland on this team. And then offensively, some of their weaknesses as well. And then I would come up with opportunities and threats. The opportunities are things that basically we have a chance to do to be successful, okay? It can be many different things. The threats can be things that are threats because of how we play or how another team that we're playing plays. In this case, Portugal, they had the potential to get hot, and they played with a lot of emotion when they got rolling, and they were a very good offensive rebounding team and very active with their hands. So, making sure, and as you can see here, I talk about another threat. Do not play the comparison game just because we beat Romania and they lost to them, because every team is dangerous in Europeans. If any of you are interested in playing for Ireland, that is something you have to know for European play. Every single team is a dangerous team, okay? I would put keys down. Typically I had 7 keys on how to beat Portugal. Then I would actually have potential starter information. And some of the things that I saw with regard, and there's an error there, but Soares was a good three-point shooter. I talk about, for instance, not a great on-the-ball defender, opens up his stance. So typically I would have a lot of information on each player, especially if I was doing a report over here and I had more time. But this is really good information for any player. So, for instance, if you know that you're going to be guarding Soares, you know what to stop, that he's not going to the foul line, that he's pretty much a three-point shooter, takes a lot of threes and not a great on-the-ball defender. So those are things that you need to know. And then, of course, I have other personnel that are of note here that are coming off the bench. Typically what I look for is, as a minimum, typically be 15 minutes or more of play. And if there are some players that are very, very like hot players that can come in a 10-minute period and put up 12 points a game, then we'll make sure they're on there as well. Another thing too, and I'm going to go ahead and put this down here. Give me one moment. All right, let me get to this. Here, I should have that around here. You do have another thing I wanted to show you too really quick is this. This is the diagrams, all right? So again, typically I use fast draw, and some of your coaches in the audience here today or that you're working with use fast draw. In the case of my scenario, I just didn't have time to be going fast draw and drawing up plays over a 5-hour period that they needed to get it when they were 7 hours ahead of me, right? So these are just some of the plays that I got. They used a lot of back screens. They used a lot of ball screens and flare screens. They pretty much used every screen you could think of. And I just basically, drew this up on paper, scanned it into PDF, and then they got this as fast as I could get it to them. And then they would use the film on their end, which I would actually give them the clip times on the YouTube videos from FIBA, and then they could make clip tapes for their players if they had the time. Baseline out of bounds, utilizing the things that they do there. They do a lot of down screening like these right here for inbounders and folks at the post. As you can see, they're going to be doing a lot of lobs, staggered double screens, flare screens, shuffle cuts, all sorts of things. So I know these are a lot of things you don't know about yet. You'll be learning, some of you will be learning about this in the coming years, but this is really good. This is just stuff that can help you understand the game a little bit more and understand the intricacies of basketball. And I also have a very simple zone offense against 1-3-1 because that's what Coach Lynch ran with his at times ran against, he used a 2-3 and a 1-3-1 with his under 16 teams, and they ran a really simple zone offense. Now, the other thing, too, that I want to show you real quick, and it's only going to be a couple minutes, this is film from Cedarville University in Cedarville, Ohio. One of their rivals in their conference is University of Findlay, one of the better teams in the country in Division II and a member of the Great Lakes Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. And what they do, basically, they have their scout film here where they'll actually put in Ricardo Smith, who is one of their players from last year, is going to be, and you can see he gets to the paint really well and can finish. You can also see him be able to finish in short situations. So he gets to that paint. That's the biggest thing as a player. You want to make sure you stop that from happening. I do not know what just happened there. It looks like I lost service here for some reason, on this video at least. Wanted to show that, and that's a technical difficulty, so we'll probably have to move on, but you do have access to this from Coach Weldon. So this film is about a 10-minute film of their team getting prepared for Findlay. So I just wanted to show you that. Okay. Real fast. Let me get to my slides here. And another thing too, so if you look on the screen real quick, on the board or the wall, you have 9 different things that, are looked at here in a report. Now, I normally will have a lot of information on my reports. And it all depends on the teams I'm coaching. If I'm coaching a 13 or 14-year-old team, probably not going to have this kind of information. I'm going to have a lot less, but it's really important to be able to understand what's coming if you want to be part of the national team as well as any team. And I would say this too, that when it comes to playing in the United States, and I know we have the young man from Colgate that's in the gym right now, he'll tell you how much, ask him sometime how much time his coaches put into doing scouting reports and film review. It's a lot. And, and so it's something that's part and parcel of being a player in the United States in that way. So one last thing, I'm going to go really quickly through this so we can get you guys on to some other things here. as we're coming to an end here to the report or presentation. Analytics, you probably heard a lot about what analytics are, maybe you haven't, but it's basically utilizing statistics and any kind of information to help you be able to make better decisions for your team and know exactly what's happening. Now, there are 4 factors in basketball success. I'm not going to go in depth into this, but there are 4 things: shooting, turnovers, rebounding, and free throws. Shooting is the most important, according to Dean Oliver, the statistician. And next would be turnovers. And free throws are a major factor with our teams over the last several years with the Irish national team. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. What do these areas look like from this past summer in the 2018 Euros? We're going to look at these areas that we just talked about. And I'm not going to go over these analytic terms, but they are in the presentation, so you can take a look at them. But we will talk briefly about them. One of the things at high level, Irish basketball teams have a lot of possessions in a game, okay? So you're going to be having anywhere almost 80 possessions in a game. That's a lot of possessions. So if you're going to be playing in the program in the future, more than likely, you're going to be getting up and down the floor, okay? That's kind of the Irish, I wouldn't say it's the Irish style of play, but the tendencies statistically show it that way. The defensive efficiency and offensive efficiency is all based on how many points are scored in each time your team has the ball, okay? So in a case like this, the Irish teams scored 0.82 points per possession, so a little less than 1 point, which is where we want it to be. Their defensive efficiency was at a 0.81, which is outstanding. And it's something that actually shocked me a couple years ago because my impression, I always thought that defense wasn't overly great, but according to statistics and according to the way that teams play with their aggressive style, it's gotten way, way, way better over the last couple of years. I do talk a little bit about the points per possession on the efficiency and everything there. Shooting is something where Irish basketball is getting better. It's actually gotten better over the last couple of cycles. As far as defense, we're defending very, very well traditional field goal percentage, but at 35.5 is really good. But our field goal percentage is 36.5 overall this past summer as a country, and our field goal percentage, which takes into account 3-point shots, actually adding more worth to them, was at 40.7. And the average typically in the NBA is around 49.66. So really, you want to try to get closer to 50% if you can, okay? 3-point percentage, for anyone that likes to shoot threes, shoot a lot of them in the right way. The country's shooting about 26% right now, at least this past summer. Of course, our opponent shot 25, so not great. And then, I talked about the field goal percentage also. So very interesting information. As far as turnovers, our turnover rates this past summer were at 22.9%. That is actually very, very good. Our opponents actually turned it over 25% of their possession. So imagine one in every 4 possessions, our opponents were turning the ball over. So that meant we were playing pretty good defense, but they also weren't handling the ball very well either. So that's just something to consider. Rebounding, this is something a lot of people have always talked to me about Irish basketball, that teams can't rebound. We can't rebound as well against the other countries in Europe. But the stats don't say that. The stats indicate that we get a large number of percentage of rebounds in every game that we play, and that we only lost a total rebounding battle in all the teams last summer by 1.7 rebounds a game as a country. So the thing that I see on that is that even though we might not have as tall of players in Ireland compared to other countries, we play aggressively and we make contact and checking out and boxing out and going to the boards. Free throw shooting was another thing. The overall rate of free throws for our country was 27%. So what that means is the rate of time when we get to the free throw line is right at 27% of all the possessions that we have, okay? So we want to try to get it up, little bit higher, up to 30%, but we were way better than our opponents, and that meant that we were aggressive and attacking and trying to get to the line. The issue was we didn't make them as well. We made 60% as a country. Our opponents made 65%, and it made a huge difference. It's something that when the clock is not running, guys and gals, you have to be able to score points, okay? So that's just something to consider. All right, so a lot of information, right? I guess at this point in time, I want to ask if anyone has questions. Anyone in the gym there in the sports hall, could be a player, be coach, anyone. Come on up to the camera if you'd like. Don't be shy.
Anybody got a question?
Come on up to the screen so I can hear you.
Oh, that's me. Coach, I'm just asking the same question. Anybody here got a question for Coach? No?
No.
No. Coaches, any questions? No questions, Coach, you don't think?
Okay, well, I'll ask the coaches, if you don't mind, while you're in the room, players, you've been working with these coaches. Any of the coaches or players, can you talk right now very briefly about how important scouting is for you to the players? So go ahead and look at your coaches, guys.
How important?
How important, what's the importance of scouting to you as a coach? Ricardo, you could even share if you'd like.
Okay, let me try. I think it's very, very important. On this age of kids, in my opinion, it's very important self-scouting. Self-scouting than the opposite scouting. Because the do individual scouting of self-scouting, they can improve much more technically and technical decisions, like individual technical. So it's really important for them to look at them playing image that can pass it to their brains than words. So I think it's very, very important for they start self-help.
Did you get that, Coach?
Yeah, I heard some of it. Yeah,
yeah. He said in Ricardo's view that at this particular age of player, the most important scouting is self-scouting, as you touched on. And he said because there's great opportunities for them to develop technically as players, you know, if they evaluate themselves, you know, given some of the guidelines that you have, you know, emphasized to them today, you know.
Sure. Coach Tommy Amani, can you tell the folks in the room real quick, can you talk, and maybe even Claire, Amelia, the importance of scouting on your run to the under-18 silver medal?
Yeah, the big thing is, like, you know, also what we do, you know, scouting is really important for us. You know, we still have to look after what we do as a team. You know, we would have done a lot of scouting for each game and kind of what good points and bad points the opposition had. You know, we focused a lot on ourselves at times as well. You know, so we had a small video of ourselves and the opposition what they did. You know, so like, kind of up to each individual player how much they take. You know, so we would do 10-minute scouting session, but then the extra stuff anyone else wants the extra stuff. You know, so it's really up to the player what they can take and whatever they take from it.
Did you get that?
Yes.
He just talked about the importance that, you know, it's a bit of an individual thing too, that, you know, so some people can be overloaded with information, and certain players need, you know, to feel prepared, they need huge information.
Right.
So that's a personal thing, and I think that's a great point by Tommy, that as these players get older, and hopefully a lot of them step up to the next level and get opportunities like Claire to play for Ireland, that, you know, that they understand what works for them as individuals. And, you know, because you can, what do they call it, paralysis by analysis too. Exactly. You know, for certain people. But like me, like you, I would like huge detail, you know, but somebody else, you know, they might just need to know, my guy can go right, my guy can shoot the tree. Exactly. And that's enough for me, you know. But, you know, it's a bit of a personal thing. But I think Ricardo's point is excellent, because it's very much in tune with the age profile we have here. I know you've asked Tommy and Ricardo. I suppose I'd like maybe Sean to maybe just give a little feedback as well, being a fellow American and coming through the college system, which would be huge detail, you know.
Yeah, and also not only Sean, but also both Claires, if you can talk a little bit about, as players, how you utilize scouting reports.
I'll just say in college, like the college schedule in regard to scouting, 2 days before every game, we'll watch about a half hour of film on each player. So the personnel will know exactly what their tendencies are, what they want to do on the court. And then the day before every game, we'll watch all of their plays, all of their sets for about a half hour as well. So we know as a team what they want to do, what they're looking for, where they want to get on the court. So going into the game, we pretty much know exactly what every player wants to do and whatever play is coming. So we know exactly what to expect. And the team we're playing against is doing the same exact thing. So they know exactly what we want to do. And then after the game is when we do kind of the self-scouting stuff. So the day after the game, for about an hour, we'll sit in the locker room and we'll just watch clips from the game yesterday or last night and see what we did wrong and how we can get better from that. So that's about 2 hours of film work just for one game. And then on top of that, we always have the opportunity to go in there, meet with an assistant coach, meet with the head coach to watch anything, whether it's scouting, self-scouting, as they call it, or scouting the opponent. We want to get more details on what the opponent wants to do. So it's a huge aspect of the college game. It's hours and hours every week of just watching and scouting the other team.
And thanks, Sean. And I guess, Coach, two Claires, you know, both players would have played at as you spoke about the tournaments you scouted during the summer.
Yeah.
They've both played in a lot of those tournaments, being such talented players. They always played a year ahead of their own age group.
Right.
So between them, they've probably maybe 7, 8 European championships. And just some of the kids probably wouldn't know, like the European Championships for under 16 and 18, the tournament that Tommy and Claire won the silver medal in, they actually played 8 games in 10 days, you know. And, you know, you talked about the 5-hour turnaround you had or whatever, you know,
Right.
you play less than 24 hours. So, like you don't get, you know, 2 weeks to prepare for your opponent. You get less than 24 hours. So you have 30 minutes on the court the following morning to go through that. Maybe Claire, one of the Claires might like to talk a little bit about that. I see Claire Amelia go on, Claire.
During the summer, playing on the national team with the European Championships for small nations, we use scouting a lot. As we talked about the night before the game, we want to film match the opposition and probably film of ourselves, so we're looking at both. And then with our little practice session the next morning before the game, we might go through some of the sets that you see on the sheet there. You might walk through some of the sets just to get a bit more of a feel of the game, what their sets and their offenses. But definitely at a national level, more so than a local level.
Yes.
But in Ireland now, I suppose online with the live streams and things makes it a bit easier for yourself to scout opposition.
Yes, yeah. I think with, like, as we're doing here with the advancements in technology, it's getting easier, like as Claire said, which is a great point as well, to utilize these things and take responsibility yourself. Like, you know, be responsible for your own game, for your own progression. You know, that there is a tendency sometimes for us to kind of leave things up to our coach. But, you know, I'm a big believer in the more information you do have, you know, the better chance you have of winning. So we're good.
Yeah, one thing before, as I close, and I want to just stress this to all the players that are in the sports hall right now, that if you ever say, well, I can't watch basketball, right? Or I don't see it enough on TV, you can always go to your computer to YouTube, and you can find the FIBA, F-I-B-A YouTube channel. And if you want to watch basketball, there are hundreds and hundreds of games on YouTube for FIBA, including all the Irish games from last summer, say for the under 18 men that played in Cyprus, I believe, or Kosovo, sorry. So that is a great way to learn. Listen, everyone in the room that's just getting into the game, I'm not telling you to be a nerd about basketball. What I'm telling you to be is that you love the game and that you try to learn as much as you can about it. For me, first time I ever thought about basketball was 7 years old here in the United States. And it made a huge difference in my life. I've moved all over the United States. I'm originally from Alabama on the Gulf Coast. So go straight south to where I'm at now, about 1,500 miles, and that's where I'm from. And, it can make a huge difference in your life. I'm going to close real quick with the last slide. I put this really quick. This nothing works unless you do box here to really emphasize this. Whether you're in camp, whether you're at school, whether you're in your neighborhood, and there's a basket and you've got a ball, the only way you're ever going to get better is to work, okay? But work is one thing, and working right is a completely different. You don't want to just go out and goof off. You want to make sure that when you're playing basketball or when you're shooting, you want to have fun. Hey, the game's fun. I'm almost 50 years old. I'm having more fun with it than I did when I was 7. But the thing is, the only way you're going to do it is to work hard, be coachable, and nothing you do, none of this stuff I talked about today is going to matter unless you work hard at it. So for anyone in the room today in the hall that has questions, I have my webpage at basketballmentoring.com, my email address, and I'm based in San Marcos, Texas normally, which is right outside of Austin, between Austin and San Antonio, Texas. That's my U.S. number, of course. I'm going to be in Ireland from November 27th until the 13th of December, and I will actually be at the Festival Basketball for the Junior NBA on the 12th in Tala. So if you're there, come up and introduce yourself. I'd love to meet you. And just know that, when it comes to the game, it's all about a love, a passion, and to have fun with it and continue to learn. You've got great coaches there. And this is a great sport. It's the greatest sport on the planet. So I thank everybody for being involved in this. Thanks so much.
Sorry, Coach. We got a camper question, which is great.
Oh, great.
And he's Coach Hughes' son.
Good. Come on up. There you go. Talk to me.
What do you do if someone else has analyzed you? Do you
Okay, good. So you're saying if somebody's actually analyzed you as a player, like they tell you you could do this better or that better, or you do this well? Is that the question?
No, it's someone like the other team has scouted you and they know exactly what you're doing.
Oh, well then they've done a good job, I suppose. The only thing you can do, listen, you have to be yourself, right? You have to play the game you can play. The thing that's great about a self-scouting report is that typically if you have good coaches or you have good friends, they're going to be able to communicate to you and say, hey, look, this is what I see with your game. You could improve this and this and this. More than likely, the other coaches on the other teams, if they're worth their salt and they're good coaches, they're going to have done the same thing. They're going to probably say the exact same things that your friends would or some of your coaches would. Typically us coaches, we talk a lot, right? We tell you a lot about what you need to do, but number one, it's all out of love because we want to help you get better, right? But another thing is we don't want to get our heads handed to us. We want you to be a good contributor on the court. And so if you do get feedback, it's important to, listen to it. Do you have to accept it every time? Well, that depends. Depends on how much you trust the person. But typically, if somebody has actually watched you from another team, and again, I do these reports just like you see in front of you. I do these for teams. I've got clients here in the United States that are high school coaches, college coaches, and I will literally watch their teams and give them 3 self-scouts a year. And I don't even know their players. I just say, hey, look, 14 Johnson can't stop her own shadow. she can't handle the basketball. And I'll be brutally honest, not in a mean way necessarily, but just mean what I say. So if you do, you won't know probably what the other coach thinks, but your friends can tell you. So if you've got good friends, ask them for feedback. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. Good question.
Good question, yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else have a question like that? That's a rock star question. I love that. All right. Well, I'll
sorry,
close.
sorry, Coach. No?
Yeah, that's it.
No,
So
no, we're good, Coach, I think, yeah. But I just want to thank Coach Rice for giving up his time today. He got up very early to speak to us. And not only that, he's obviously, by his presentation, he's obviously spent a lot of time pre the 45, 50 minutes that we've done here as well. So he's prepared for this event, and he's given up his time free of charge, and it's much appreciated. And you know, I want to thank all of you guys. You know, again, your age profile, I thought your intention was really good. So it says a lot about the presentation too, that the guys were locked in the whole time. And like I said, anybody that wants this information, your parents can email me, and I will forward on the information on the presentation to your parents. And like I said, come across Coach Rice. He's a good guy. If you are up at the National Schools competition, do go up and say hello to him, because he's got vast knowledge of basketball, and he's only too happy to share that knowledge with people when they ask questions.
absolutely.
Okay,
Thanks, guys. All right, now go play some basketball.
okay. Right, Coach.
Bye.
Guys, thanks so much.
Thanks.